All right, Kat. Welcome back. It's been, what's it been, a year or two?
Almost two.
Almost two since
Yeah.
you've been here.
Yes.
What's going on in your world? You have a new boyfriend.
I do. Yes. I took some time off from dating for quite a while, and I met Michael in a very unconventional way.
How'd you meet this guy?
Expecting. I went to volunteer with a friend of mine's group. They do like in prison like basketball tournaments. So they'll play like the yard, and each yard will like have a team, and they practice for months and they prepare. So I went in with them because I love basketball and I enjoy playing. And I also went in for my own personal healing experience, maybe talk to people that were on the other side of the fence, people that everyone on the yard is there for various reasons, obviously, but there are like lifers, there are people that have committed, assault, rape, all kinds of things. So I think putting myself in that situation was kind of cathartic for me. We went, and I did not play a single game. I sat and watched and like kind of allowed myself to be uncomfortable. And it wasn't anyone that was incarcerated that made me uncomfortable. It's just the overwhelming amount of men, and me being like the only woman was a lot to take in. And I remember walking into the gym. I believe it was our second game of that day. I walked in and I saw him like warming up, and he's 6'5", so he's really hard to miss. And he was handsome, but I wasn't like, oh my God, he's so handsome, like let me talk to him. It was a very like, don't talk to the inmates unless you're exchanging like positive information, or like you're not supposed to have a personal relationship, which is weird to me, but we'll get to that. I sat down, he came over, shook my hand, and he continued practicing, and they played the game. And then as we were leaving, he like waved bye to us. And that was, I thought was going to be the last time I saw him. We did have a conversation after the game. I found him, he was talking to someone else that was on the team. And him and what I later found out was his brother are both there together, like same pod, different buildings, I believe, or same yard, different buildings. And I asked him about himself. He said he had a podcast and he interviews people like with interesting stories. So I was like, oh, this could be a good collaboration because I could give him some exposure because it's a very small podcast. So then I asked him his sentence, and he told me life without, or he said LWOP, and I didn't know what LWOP meant because I'm not familiar with the prison system. And I later found out it was life without parole. So 0 chance of getting out.
And what was he in for?
Later, I Googled him. So I actually got reached out to on social media by someone, and they told me that he wanted to connect with me for the podcast. And then as him and I started talking, that's when I got like his full name and Googled him. And he's incarcerated for murder, two murders, back in the 90s. It's very, very interesting situation. Obviously, when I Googled it, I was like shocked and super unsure about my friendship with him because we did develop like a rapport and a friendship. And then I like reminded myself, like, just don't take it for what it is, like really use my mind to discern, like, what is the truth? People are wrongfully accused and incarcerated all the time. So especially during the 90s, him being a Black man, I tried to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. So I Googled him, read articles. There's one very biased article it's very clear, like the message they're trying to get across. And there's one that is very fact-based. So I read that one, did more digging, and now I have his case files. And I've read through them, and it's insane. What happened, what occurred, like the trial, 2 murders, and like a pretty big length of time apart were lumped into one trial. Andy had 2 co-defendants, I believe 2 or 3.
So these were 2 separate murders?
2 separate murders, totally unrelated, put into one trial, and they were trying to give him the death penalty. And he wasn't chosen out of the lineup by the kid that was there twice. He didn't match the description. Like, there were just no physical evidence, no gun was found. So I don't believe he did it. He still maintains his innocence. So we're fighting to kind of get him out if we can. There's new laws being passed in California that are helpful. So hoping
to get him off of death row.
He's not on death row, so he was not given. He was not sentenced to the death penalty at all. But life without parole, obviously. But California passed a new law. It's like you're 25 or under. They're saying like after research, the human brain doesn't develop until 25 fully, so you don't really understand the ramifications of your actions in that way. And also like environmental circumstances and all of that, family circumstances contribute a great deal too. So
what prison is he in?
Corcoran. Like Corcoran Satif, it's called. So I drive up every other weekend to go see him. I stay one night and then we have visiting time.
And this has been going on for how long?
8 months.
8 months. And you're able to be in contact with him?
Yeah, we like phone calls, and there's video calls on like this tablet that they have. Like they're given tablets, and there's a kiosk for video calls, but in-person video or visits are obviously preferred.
Are you able to be alone with him at all? Or?
No.
So you guys have not been intimate.
So the visits are like annoying because first you have to like get past the COs at the front counter, and nothing you wear is ever acceptable basically. So I just have to wear baggy clothes. Otherwise they nitpick you. So then you get in and you're allowed to hold hands only, and you can kiss and hug at the beginning of the visit. So that's the only action we get. And then holding hands. But like being a human, like wanting to, like, if he has something on his face, touch his face and get it off, or like, you know, something on his lip from eating, like I wipe it off, like you get reprimanded for that. So it's very hard to like feel, it's almost like you're punished for showing affection, and not in a sexual way. Like I would never be sexual, obviously. There's kids in the visiting room, there's families, like would never do that. But it kind of reminds you like human affection is a luxury.
Why do you think you chose to help inmates with their little basketball program? You didn't go to a high school. You didn't go to a grade school.
I know.
You have to take responsibility for the fact that you're involving yourself with inmates.
I'm actually excited to talk about it because it's something I'm very passionate about. I got a lot of like flack for going to a prison instead of like a women's shelter or helping young girls in schools and all that. Obviously, people are like, why would you do that? And I'm like, well, you know, honestly, I feel like 90% of groups that go into prison are religious-based, right? So not everyone is religious, and that shouldn't be your only path to redemption or rehabilitation. So for me, it's like, what if I go in and I'm somebody that's relatable, my story is interesting, and some of the people that are there may have like trafficked women in some capacity. There's pimps in there. I met somebody that was a pimp, and he came right up to me and introduced himself. So it was kind of like I wanted to see the more human side, because my like the man that, you know, trafficked me, I do see him as a human, and I do think about his circumstances. I do think about how he was raised, what he saw when he was growing up. Like there has to be a reason why you are that way. You're not just born that way.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Influenced to be that way. So I try to give him grace and forgiveness. And my goal is to eventually meet with him, like go to the prison and sit with him.
I think it would give both of you guys peace.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if he's feeling unrest about it. But it would be nice to know if he is. And if he is, then having that conversation might be good for both of us. But what better way to get acclimated to a prison environment than go? So it was for selfish reasons in a lot of ways. But also, like, I want to understand the people on the other side and why, maybe. I'm very curious, so I want to know why. You chose to do the things you did. There are people that, like, have admitted, that I've become close to, that have actually committed murder as a teenager. Like, they've been incarcerated since they were 16 or 19, you know? And I have a 20-year-old son and an 18-year-old son. And I look at them and I'm like, they're not really like, they don't really think like we think, right? They're just kind of impulsive and they just go with it. So imagine if one of them were in a situation where they had no control, or they were pressured, or they couldn't get out of it, and then they end up in prison forever. Like, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone is a human, and I think we should make sure that we continue to see them as human beings. So
your boyfriend's name is what?
Michael.
Michael.
Yeah. His name's Etienne, but he goes by Michael. Yeah.
Would you say you're in love with Michael?
I am.
You are.
Yeah. And also, there's also an interesting psychological part of it, I think.
I'm sure there's a bunch.
There's a lot. I tend to, in my relationships, there's always like physicality pretty early on. And I think that comes from my past and feeling like sex is something that is super important and I have to prove myself in some way or give them that to see if they really want to be with me. Or maybe if that's good enough, they'll stay and deal with like the mental shit that I have going on. But with him, I don't have that option. There's no physical anything. I mean, unless we get married and do family visits, because there are conjugal visits in California. I would get 2 days and one night in an apartment on the prison grounds with him, unsupervised. I mean, so that would be nice, but we don't have sex. So it's a purely emotional connection. There's not like a feeling of being slighted or used or any of those feelings don't come up. So it's been kind of healing.
In some ways that helps a connection.
I think so.
In other ways it's a problem, but
yeah, I mean, it's frustrating, but also like sex is not like necessary for me right now. I'm fine. But yeah, I mean, imagine if people actually took time to get to know each other before
right.
doing that. So
like we did 80 years ago.
They used to do that, I think.
They used to do
back
that.
in the day. There was like courting and like all these other things that happened.
Before contraception and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm pretty traditional in that sense. I'm learning. So it's nice.
Do you think the way you grew up and your young exposure to sex work and the streets plays a role in all of this?
I think so. I think it's hard for me sometimes because the trust is hard for me. I mean, I feel like a lot of the social stigma that comes with dating someone who's in prison, or feedback I get anyway, is he's using you for money, he's using you for validation, he's lonely, he's bored, like that's the only reason he can call and write letters. Like he writes me letters all the time. I have a binder filled with letters. Like he like made art for me for Christmas, like just things that no one's ever done for me. Like, but I don't financially give him a dime. I can't. I have 4 kids and I wouldn't, because I'm very traditional in the sense that, you know, I like a man who shows up for me and can help me and me help him in other ways, but financially is not an option for me. So that stigma ends there. But I think with the whole, like my past with sex trafficking is interesting because in an odd way, I think it allows me to be more empathetic for him. I don't know why. I don't understand it, because I think a lot of people that have gone through it are very like, you know, everyone that does something like this should be in prison forever, or like him, they would just look at him and see his case and be like, well, he deserves to never see the light of day. He's been in there for almost 29 years and he's, you know, honors in college, and he's, you know, he does positive impact work. Like he's a great person. And I think it allows me to see that side of him, even though I've seen like the worst in people. And I do believe everyone has like a dark side. I just don't see that in him.
But there's certainly a pattern with your choice in partners.
Yes. Toxic. I've never dated anyone in prison. It's not like you're presented with people that are in prison. Like you don't like meet them on the street. So
you went looking for them.
I didn't. I really didn't. I really went for that reason. I did not go thinking I was going to meet somebody. I'm a super physically affectionate person. So learning how to be alone is not always easy. Like not having him there, you know, him saying like, if your cabinet breaks or my little knob comes off my door, he can't fix it.
But I believe sometimes we choose partners that will test us in the areas that we need growth.
Yeah, I agree.
And by choosing a guy who is physically unavailable because he's in a cell and
Yeah.
you can't get close to him might force you to grow a little bit. In
Well, it
areas
has.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Also, like, I'm really nitpicky and I can be bratty in a relationship. If something doesn't go my way or if I don't feel supported in the way that I want, like, I lash out or I throw my walls up and I'm guarded. When you're with somebody who's in that situation and their reality is very bleak, even though he stays positive, he knows every single day when he gets up, he's going to do the same exact thing he did the day before. There's no variation, right? So I think knowing that and having care for him in his situation has taught me how to really learn how to maybe not do the knee-jerk reaction when I'm pissed off or when I don't get my way or when I'm feeling slighted. I have to like really think about it and process it instead of pushing him away because he's going through more shit than I could even fathom. So like it's taught me to kind of put him before myself in some ways, which I think everyone does in a relationship at some point. I just have never done that. It's almost like if you're not serving me and you're not like there for me in the ways that I need, I don't deserve that, so I'm walking away instead of like figuring it out and growing.
Could there be something about this arrangement, this situation that you're in with Michael that fits your ability to commit or not commit, or like, you know, you can't really, he can't really come too close to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of protect yourself.
I'm protected in a way, oddly. That's a good perspective. I haven't even thought about it like that. I think in my past relationships, because they've moved so fast, like the boy's dad, I knew him for 2 months. I was 16. He was 24. I was fresh out of sex trafficking. So he was nice to me, and I just like latched on. And in a weird way, he was like a father figure. So I got pregnant 2 months into that relationship, got married, moved out. And then, you know, obviously tried for 8 years and dealt with emotional and verbal abuse and controlling, manipulative behavior, cheating, all that stuff. I get out of that marriage. I'm single for 2 months. I meet the girl's dad, fly to California. We sleep together. I get pregnant 2 months in. Same scenario. We end up like, we were actually broken up, get back together, get married, end up having another baby, and then we split. And then I took a couple years off and then met my third husband, who, again, COVID hit, so we had to move in together super fast because he was moving out. But it was so fast. We got married within like 4 months. So it was just like constant, like quick, like I always went with like my heart and I didn't go with my gut at all. So I think that's like my pattern. And with him, I can't do that. Like I can't.
There's no way you could do it.
I can't just be like, let's do it.
I guess you could get married and then you'd be able to see him.
Yes, absolutely.
Be
But
physical.
considering we're both going through divorces right now and the process to like marry is not something you can't be like, we want to get married this weekend. And they're like, okay, cool. Like there's like a whole long process to that. So that's going to give us even more time to like figure it out and get to know each other.
What have you learned about yourself from all of this?
I can be by myself physically.
How old are you?
37.
37.
I don't need like a man to make me feel good about myself, which is big. Even though he all the time over complimentary, like uncomfortable complimentary. I'm not good with compliments or people saying nice things to me, or I'm not used to it. So I think that's weird for me and hard for me to overcome. Or people say it and I just brush it off and I'm like, ew, because it makes me feel, I don't want my physical appearance to matter. And I think that goes back to sex trafficking, obviously. But I think me as a person, I don't know. I can be by myself. Also, like I have kids that live at home with me. I don't have to worry about him moving in right away. If he does get out, like it's in the future. My kids will be older and my life focus will be more on me at some point, hopefully. I'll be able to like do things for myself. But that's like kind of where I'm at with it. I really want physical affection from him. It's hard sometimes. It's hard seeing him there. And when he's having a bad day, or his lawyer, for instance, he has a public defender, doesn't get back to him like for weeks. And there's like things that can be put into motion to like help him get resentenced or whatever. It's just the lack of care I think that I'm seeing is making it so that I have to like buck up and just make moves instead of laying in bed and feeling sorry for myself.
I've seen, though, that sometimes obstacles can make a relationship flow and move forward.
Yeah.
Much faster than if the guy lived across the street and
Yeah.
liked you a lot and wanted to get together tonight for pizza
Yeah.
and so on. Sometimes that's just too much threatened closeness.
But that's weird because I always like wanted that. Even when I was like dating the person I dated before him.
But asking a woman what she wants and what her behavior tells you are very different things sometimes.
Yeah. The guy I was dating before him was a situationship, and I was like super into him, really liked him. Like he would only give me time like every now and then, and only when it suited him, and I had to drive to him. Like it was very like me serving him, I felt like. And it started to feel like, is this like all I'm good for? Like after 10 p.m. phone calls, because that's what it was, just a situationship that I like really wanted to become a relationship, but it wasn't going to. And with him, it's like all I've ever wanted was somebody to like really get to know me and give me time. Time is like super important to me. And he has a lot of time, obviously. He does have things he does. He doesn't just sit in his cell and draw pictures and write letters all day. Like that's not his life. But he does like make sure I'm a priority, and I've never had that before. It's always like I'm chasing the guy I'm with. Please look at me, spend time with me, and it never happens. And I'm always just like, what is wrong with me? Am I like intolerable? But if you can sit on the phone with somebody for hours every single day and just talk, I mean, I guess I'm not. I'm not to him.
Are you happy in this relationship?
I'm happy.
You're happy?
I feel like it's the healthiest relationship I've ever had. There's no screaming. No one's throwing anything at each other. Like he's taken 1 million anger management classes and relationship classes. There's nothing else to do in there but self-help. So he's very like emotionally aware and emotionally available and intelligent in those areas. So
how old is he?
He's 49.
49. Do you ever just stand back and look at this situation and think you're nuts?
I think the only time I think that is when like the hard questions get brought up. Like, and I don't think I'm nuts. I do think like I will think about things that people say in my comments. Like there were a lot of people that were supportive, but there's always those one comments like, I'm like, if they bother me that much, then they really must be like touching a nerve, right? So I try to like figure out what it is. Like somebody will say like, well, like what if he never gets out? Like, are you going to be 80 driving 3 hours to prison to see him for 6 hours? Like, is that realistic?
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Like, what does the long term look like for you? And I honestly, it's very strange to say, but I go in there and like there are a few people I see, and there are like older couples that I've become acquainted with. Like someone is in there doing LWAP and his wife comes up. She drives 3 hours to go see him, spends 4 hours with him, drives 3 hours home, and then comes back the next day because she has a dog and she doesn't want to leave the dog alone. So she, instead of staying up there, which I do, she does that drive. But seeing them together and seeing their dynamic, and like they will sit and study the Bible together, they will do crosswords and just laugh. There's no phones allowed. So there's no distraction. We literally sit in a room with a bunch of other people, pay for overpriced, disgusting food, and talk for 6 hours. And we never stop talking. It's just like...
You can talk on the phone with Michael as well?
Yeah, all the time.
You do that every day, probably.
Every day.
Yeah.
All day. Yeah. He called me on my way here. Like I asked if he wanted to do a video call at the end just so he could say hi to you. But yeah, he's like, whenever I want, he can call.
You want to put him on the phone?
I will, yes.
We'll do it at the end.
Yes, I will. But I don't know what that looks like for me. I feel like it's weird because my whole life I've lived for someone else. I've been a mom forever. So every move I make, every decision I make, everything I do is planned around my kids. And I do long for the day when I can just do something that I want and like spend money on whatever I want without like being like, oh, well, if I buy this, I'm going to be short on groceries next week. Like, you know, feeding 4 kids is expensive. And when I look at my life, if he were to stay in, which I'm hoping this does not happen. But when I met him, he told me LWAP. I did not go into this thinking he could get out, there's potential, like he could be home. I literally thought there was no way he was ever going to be out. And I fell in love with him knowing that. So there's no expectation I'm not holding anything over his head saying, well, if you're not out in 6 years, I'm leaving. Like most women, he has dated a lot of women that said, well, if you're not out in a year, I can't do this. Like, I actually think it's something that I could deal with in more ways than you would expect. Like me being alone and having like a little house by myself with my dogs, going to see him every other weekend or having our family visits where I get to go and like spend the night with him and cook for him and he can cook for me. And I can still travel or do what I want to do for me and like really spend time with myself in the in-between and not go into another marriage where I'm like bleeding out for my spouse, which is what I usually do. And never considering like my own feelings or what I want, like always watching what they want or always listening to what they want or doing what they want. I can do what I want. And then when I'm with him, I can like nurture him. So it's like this weird, like, I don't know. It's just, it feels like it would be okay. Like I would be fine.
I think it's important, especially for the people watching this and being judgmental and saying, oh, this is nuts. It's important to understand that given the background that you came from, who you were as a young girl, and what you went through, it's super important to understand that because everyone has their level of closeness that they're comfortable with. And I've dated women who are really avoidant and just only can handle so much closeness and intimacy, and other ones who need a lot or are comfortable with a lot. And you have to understand that people are just, they're wired the way they are.
Sometimes I don't think this would work for a lot of people.
No.
And I think like, especially the way dating is now, which is like my worst nightmare. It is very superficial, very surface. Like I do not do well in that environment. So this has enabled me to develop like a super deep connection with him. And I am not advocating for prison relationships. I'm not. And I don't want people to think I'm out here saying like, you should date an inmate, because I don't believe that. I don't think it works for a lot of people. And I do think there are like poor intentions on both sides. Like there are women who want validation from these men and they're using them for that. And the guy's using them for money or whatever, like arrangement they have. Like someone's getting something. I think our relationship is super rare. I will say that. It was built on like more logical, intellectual connection and then emotional versus like me being like, he's so cute. Like, oh my God, he gives me attention. I love him. It really did develop over time, like getting to know him. And I don't think it would work for a lot of people. And I think if you don't know that you can handle the situation, don't get involved. Like, because the person you're dating that's incarcerated, like you can move on tomorrow and meet somebody off Tinder or whatever dating app you're using, but they're like stuck and they have to like live this life every single day and they don't have a choice. They don't have control over it. So I think it's very selfish for women to dip their toes in the water and be like, I don't know, like maybe it'll work, and then just bounce and leave them and imagine like healing from heartbreak in prison when you have to deal with worrying about if someone's going to stab you or what's going on politically around you, because it's so political. It's crazy.
You started working under a pimp at what age? You were young.
14.
14. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that experience has impacted you in ways that you are aware of and probably are not aware of. But given all of that, and who knows what else, genetic stuff or family stuff from your parents, my view on the whole thing is that I'm just glad you're happy.
Yeah.
You're not hurting anybody by having this relationship.
Yeah.
It works for you, works for Michael. That's beautiful.
Yeah, there's There's some dynamics about it that I'm learning, though, like about myself, like even sexually, like very like it's weird because like there are certain power dynamics that like I'm learning that I enjoy or that I like. So I like wonder if being in a relationship with somebody who was like obviously involved in the gang lifestyle, like his whole young life and even into his prison years, like if being with someone like that and knowing he's powerful and like strong and like people respect him, that makes me feel comfortable in like a not great way, if that makes sense. Like it's like throwing it back to that point in my life, but he respects me. He always makes sure I'm included. Like I'm never in the dark. He's very transparent with me, which I think is the difference between having like this idolized like power trip guy that you're into, like a pimp or whatever. And I'm not saying you're into a pimp, but like that sort of like demand for respect in your partner, but like with transparency. It's like a totally different element that I wouldn't have expected. Because a lot of men like that are very like, you don't need to know, you don't question me about anything. If you want to be here, you deal with it. Like that's how he used to be. Like he told me. I used to like talk to one woman and I would talk to a bunch of other women because like, I'm not committing to you. You're not going to stay. So what's the point? And with me, it's very like, I told him from day one, I'm not cool with it. Like if I find out you're speaking to other women, I'm out. Like I don't play that. And I'm obviously posting on social media. If he's talking to anyone else, they will slide in my DMs. So I'm like not concerned. And when you spend 99% of your time with me, not concerned. Like I know that he respects me in the relationship, which I think is the difference. Like men on the street, it's not the same.
As long as it works for you.
Yeah.
That's great. You want to give Michael a call?
I can't call him, but I can message him and he can call me. I got to get my phone.
Okay.
Call from
ETN Moore.
an incarcerated individual at
California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and State Prison at Corcoran in Corcoran, California.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Sorry, baby, I had to come to the wall. My tablet was tripping. I'm here. What's up?
Hi. I just wanted to call you. He asked if I could call you. Obviously, I can't call you, so I had to wait for you to call me.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael. This is Mark.
Can you hear him?
Can you hear me?
I heard him.
Hey, Michael. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, excellent. So I'm doing a little interview with Kat, and she's talking a lot about you in this interview. And she suggested, I could put Michael on the phone. So we're going to put you on the phone for this interview. Is that okay?
That's fine by me.
Excellent. So you guys met through the little basketball program that Kat came to.
Yes.
And you guys, how do you feel about this relationship?
Oh, you go right for the jugular. I love it. This is being in a relationship with somebody in these type of circumstances is not easy, and neither one of us were looking for a relationship, so we're going through all the motions of a new relationship and building a trust and a foundation, and it's not always easy, but I love it. This is like a really incredible feeling to meet somebody like her, somebody that kind of understands trauma and that's been through some things. Somebody that I could talk to when I need to, somebody that can talk to me when she needs to. And yeah, overall, I love it. It's moving along very well, and I'm proud of it.
Not a lot of guys can pull a dime from prison.
Oh my God.
Right. Yeah.
You have hopes of maybe one day getting out?
Yeah, the hope never goes away. My situation is very specific to me, and my case is very unique. I've always held out hope because, in here, that's the one thing that you need to hold on to just to keep going. A lot of things have been changing, a lot of laws, and a lot of things that can just help my position to show or display change. Hopefully I'm on the winning end of that, and I can go home soon because I've been down almost 29 years, and it's been a long, long time.
You've been in for how many years?
29.
29 years.
Yes, sir.
And it's probably more than half your life, right?
What do you say, man?
Is it more than half your life?
Yes, over.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been in way longer than he's been out.
What is the hardest part of having a relationship like this? It's nice that Kat comes up so often, but what is the hardest part of it?
Oh, not being able to be there is one of the hardest parts of it. I know that she's a single mom, and sometimes life gets difficult. And being a man's man, I always want to be there for my family and my loved ones. And this is my first, really, really adult relationship. But I think it took me a long time to grow up. So the hardest thing I would just say is not being able to be there all the time. Having to utilize the communication that prisons give us. I mean, as you can see, the 15-minute calls will probably hear, a little operator saying something in a few seconds, but it's not easy, building a relationship, having to communicate with each other through these avenues. And it's really difficult sometimes, but she makes it easy a lot of the times.
And Kat told me that she believes that you're not guilty of these crimes.
That's true. Growing up in that lifestyle that I was and being committed to that lifestyle, there was no way that I was going to go into a police station and tell them who I thought or knew was a part of the crime. And they went hard in that avenue. They made me pay for it. I wasn't the shooter in any of these cases. Whatever I was accused of, I never killed another human being in my entire life. And I've never changed or wavered my position in that, and I never will, no matter what.
You're an honorable man.
I wouldn't call it honor, more stupid sometimes.
Yeah. I think it would be easier for him to actually get out if he said he did it versus claiming he's innocent.
Yeah, as wild as that sounds, like the parole process nowadays, they want people to go in there and be able to explain their crime, have insight about it, admit to it, have remorse, and then those things lead to obviously either a favorable or not favorable result, and a lot of people get favorable results, but they frown down on people who do not take responsibility for their crimes. So just the sheer fact that I am absolutely not guilty of what they charged me with and convicted me of, it puts me in a unique position again. But I'm not gonna waver on that.
The world has changed a lot since you got put away 29 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I get boba sometimes, and he's like, "What is boba?"
He doesn't even know what the internet is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Technology is a new thing.
Right.
Do you feel like you're institutionalized now?
Oh, in many ways, I believe that I am. That's a difficult question to answer because throughout my time in prison, I was really wrapped up in the criminality of it, and for the most part, I had an illegal cell phone. And during that time, I was able to keep contact with the streets pretty frequently, so I was, ahead of the curve
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
more so than most. And then I got caught with a cell phone and decided that I was going to leave those alone because there's a lot of pressure that goes with that, and they take away a lot of privileges. But in some ways, yeah, I think I am. I have a lot of things I have to work through: pride, stubbornness, ego. Just the fact that in here everything is based on respect. So every little thing can be misconstrued as something that's disrespectful, and it requires a certain kind of reaction. So I've been having to grow out of that mentality on my own. But Kat has helped me out a lot with that, just for the record.
Yeah, she seems like a great girl.
Absolutely.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
And I wish you guys all the luck in the world.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to need a lot of it, so I appreciate that.
All right, Michael. Thank you very much.
All right, love you.
All
I'll
right.
message you when I'm
I love
done.
you too, baby. Okay, baby.
Bye.
Michael seems like a great guy.
He is. I mean, you don't know him that well, so. But I think if you got to know him, you would enjoy him.
Yeah. Well, Kat, thank you for opening up about your love life.
No problem.
I hope people understand this situation better than a quick
I
assumption of.
really hope people just I really hope people just have like more of an open mind and understanding for other people, because I think that's like hugely lacking in the world, and it's really sad.
It doesn't help anybody.
People that are forgotten on the streets or in prison, like it's like they don't even exist, you know, wiped off the map. That's like the ultimate punishment, in my opinion.
Yeah. Or people like yourself who have been through terrible things as kids. It changes a person forever.
It does. Yeah. But hopefully it helps in some way.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Kat.
No problem.